Welcome to another webinar from Klimakultur. My name is Julie Forkammer. I work at Klimakultur, which is a non-profit placed in the mountains of Norway, focusing on both the fossil-free culture sector, but also on creating content on the most sustainable things we can do and use culture to in these days. Today's webinar is part of a webinar series supported by Kulturrom about Fremtidens Kulturlokaler, or the future of culture arenas. You can check out our YouTube channel, and you can press subscribe if you want to, for previous webinars in this series. And we have been talking to a lot of brilliant people in Norway and other places as well in this series. So check it out, and you can also find more information on our website. But today's webinar is going to be exciting. I think we're going to meet one of the most unique cultural arenas in Norway. It's placed in Bergen on the west coast. And we're going to talk with Eva Rowson and her colleague Maik from Bergen Kjøtt. And let's meet them, guys. Hello, Eva and Maik.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us.
So would you like to do a quick introduction of the two of you before we start digging into Bergen Kjøtt, which means Bergen's meat? Let's so people know that. Yes.
And here we have the old sign from the front of the building when it was a meat factory in the 1960s. So my name's Eva. I'm from the UK, but now I've been living in Bergen for 5 years, and I'm the managing director of Bergen Kjøtt. And Maik is my great colleague.
Yes, I'm Maik. I'm also not native Norwegian. I'm from Germany originally, and I have a background in architecture, and that's pretty much my role in the building here since 1.5 years approx, to take care of our nice old treasure box.
Yeah, and
because it's old box. So tell people, what is Bergen Kjøtt today, and what has it been before?
Yes, so today Bergen Kjøtt is actually now one of the largest cultural production centres or music production centres in Norway, and we have 28 permanent sound and music production studios with more than 110 people working in the building here. So it's everything from DJs to experimental musicians, composers, hardanger fiddle players, and then also recording studios. So many bands from across Norway and the region and internationally also coming to record music, film, documentaries, and more here. We also have 2 multidisciplinary venues. We're sitting in one of them now. And we work with around 50 different partners in the city every year to produce around 150 events. So we host everything from concerts to music festivals to clothing swaps, Transgender Awareness Week. So we try to be a location in the city which can be a place for all kinds of activity and welcome as many different people as possible. And the building this year is 120 years old. So it was built in 1905, first as a butter production factory. And where we're sitting now is the old factory floor. And then in 1909, the butter factory went bankrupt and it became a margarine factory. And then in the 1960s, it became a meat production factory that lasted until 2000 when it closed down. And in 2010, it was the empty factory building was taken over and rented by Bergen Contemporary Art Project, who had a vision to turn this empty old factory into city centre studios and a multidisciplinary venue. And
would you like to show us a little bit?
Would we like to what? To walk? Yes.
Yeah.
But to see the room you're in, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, so we will give you a little tour now. So 5 years ago, I've been here now for 5 years, but 6 years ago, the city council in Bergen stepped in to make sure this building wouldn't be sold to property developers or have to move all the studio tenants out. So now the building is actually owned by a new non-profit foundation that was set up by the city council. And I'm the first managing director of that foundation. So we've taken over the building to own it and manage it and take care of it and think about how to develop it for the future. So now we're in the old factory floor, which is our main concert venue. So you can see that we really take a lot of care of the history, and all of the walls you'll see are kind of have many layers of the paint from the last 100 years, and the floor is made of brick with you can see the history is really in the building. And this is where we host most of our activity, but we also really try and keep the history of the place. So when we installed the sound system and the lights, they are white so that they blend in more with the old walls, so it doesn't look like a concert venue. And every development that we do, we try and also think about it sustainably. How can we reuse materials? How can we make what we do more accessible to more people? So here we have an example. This is of some tables. These are the tables that we use in the bar, and they're made from old floorboards that we took up from a studio in the building a few years ago. So we took the floorboards up and then made tables with them. And this is one of our most recent builds. This is our new bar that Maik built. And it's made using almost entirely recycled materials. So bits of wood that we've had from leftover projects and materials that we've repurposed. And you'll also notice that it has this orange line here, and it's also low. So we're working with a fantastic group of accessibility consultants who are helping us to think about every investment that we make, how to make it more accessible. So the bar is now nice and low, so if you're a wheelchair user, you can hang out at the bar and you don't have to reach up high to pay your bill or get your beer. And then we can take you down the stairs. I don't know if you're getting a good...
If you pause a second, Eva,
yes.
let's hear from Maik, the architect.
I tend to take over these things.
So, what's been fun and what's been difficult with changing the room you're in now?
It's like operating in a living system, really. When you operate in like an existing architecture, then you have a lot of challenges, and especially this one was never meant to be for let's say warm bodies. So it was like always a factory, and I think the biggest challenge is also to make it kind of adaptable for human beings to have a good atmosphere and also like as we are doing in sound and music a lot, we also have to take a lot of care of the acoustics. Not only here in the venue, but also in the music studios. So I think that's a big part of our daily challenges. And also,
so if you lift up the screen a little bit so we can see the room you're in. No, the other way. The other way. There you are. Now we can see and turn it around a little bit. Yeah, we can see everything. Because the room was meant to be for dead meat. So it should be cold. So how have you gotten it warmer?
So we've done a lot of work making it drier, and now we have these heat pumps. So we got rid of all our industrial heaters that were using so much energy, and now we have 3 heat pumps that keep the room like a good temperature. And
Is that enough? It looks like the one I have in my home, and that's not industrial sized. But...
they were specified for the space. So we trust them. We have a bit of a bigger one that fills the kind of big, the bigger part of the room. But it's meant that we can keep a much more controlled temperature and not have to rely on so many like energy-sucking heaters. This one's a bit more
Where is it?
beefy. This one up here. Yeah.
So I'd just like to say that we haven't done this before with people walking around showing us the venues, and I love it.
Everyone is feeling a bit seasick at home.
Yeah.
And if anyone has any questions watching, they can put it in the comment section. Another question to you, Maik. With so much concrete and the need to create a space for good sound and acoustics, so what measures have you done in the room to help with the acoustic?
There are a lot of soft surfaces like this one, for instance. It's like a box that is covered with molton. It's the same you can see on that wall, like free. And then you can also see the ceilings are covered with this kind of foam with this uneven surface. And then when we have to block the windows, then for events, then that's also panels that are covered with a molten fabric, and we are planning to have a curtain, like a ceiling-high curtain, for acoustic reasons, but also in order to divide the space a little bit better, to make it because sometimes events are a little bit bigger, so that they can't fit in the bar downstairs in the other venue that we will see soon. But they will be too small to fill out the whole of Fabrikhallen. So the curtain project will help both, like to kind of divide the room and for acoustics. And then we brought in a lot of like these old vintage furniture you see there that also helps with the acoustics. But it's a process. And the challenge is also that we have so many different events here and with different needs acoustic-wise, that it's, we won't probably have like a one-fits-all solution.
Yeah, and trying to keep the space as flexible as possible. So the sound system was installed so that we can move the speakers into different positions, so we don't have one fixed stage. And we also learn a lot through doing so many different events. We learn like how audiences use the room or how organizers position the stage. So we're kind of always learning, because the room also can have so many different types of events. So it means like we also we learn with the activity that's happening here, and then we can also respond to what's needed. And it's really nice, working with so many different organizers, because they also come with suggestions that we haven't thought about or needs that we haven't taken into consideration. So it's like this constant kind of feedback process. Which,
so what's the capacity in the room now? Because you're going to change that in the future, I've heard.
Yeah, so at the moment we have capacity for 250, but we're missing a fire exit, and that will give us capacity for 500 people. So the plan now is to build a fire exit from this part of the building out here.
Yeah. So.
And then the room itself can already host 500 people, but not without this fire exit. But the new fire exit from the back here will also be fully accessible. So it will be one long ramp, which will mean that we also have full accessibility even in emergencies. At the moment, the other fire exits are stairs only. So I think that's why it's fun also working together on these adaptations. It's not just to put in a fire exit so we get to 500 people. Then we always try and think, how can we make the most of this new fire exit? And making it one long ramp will mean that we have full accessibility.
One more question before we go downstairs. Where do you, as culture organizers, where do you learn how to do all the renovating with the good sustainable practices? Where do you get inspiration, or is it who do you go to?
Different sources. I mean, one source is probably like all these event organizers that we meet, but also being in touch with other venues in town, like Landmark or Fremtidens, USF, to keep. I think that's probably the biggest part, like just keeping in touch, because every venue has specific challenges, but also similar challenges, and it's like I think that's where we take most out of it, but also countrywide, no, like I would say.
Yeah. And I think we also we try out a lot of things, and we learn through doing, and we always try and think, what have we got and how can we make something with what we've got first rather than buying new. So we also just experiment a lot, and then that's nice, to then share with other venues, or to learn how they have also done things previously. So
I think a very big part in it is like to think of it as a process, and don't think of it as a result you want to. I mean, obviously we have an idea where we want to go to, but if you don't celebrate the process, then you're kind of lost, because it's such a big building, so many challenges and also costs. So that's why improvisation, one-to-one mock-ups or stuff like this is helping a lot. And then if things work out, then they can be turned into a kind of permanent solution. So
and I think we also listen a lot to the users, and it's meant a lot working with groups like the organizers from Transgender Awareness Week, and now we work with this fantastic group of women who have lived experience of disabilities. So we also learn a lot from them about what would make their experience better here, in terms of how we greet them, how we welcome them, the physical infrastructure of the building, and really small things like you'll see downstairs, color contrast, things that we just don't even think about. So we learn a lot from listening to our organizers, rather than being a venue where it's like organizers are coming in, performing on stage and going out. We try and learn with them. And I think that's also something from this history of the building being a factory. It's always been a production space. So when we're doing our public program, it's also we're still thinking in that production way. What new knowledge can we produce, or new partnerships, or new ideas, rather than just a stage where people are playing and then leaving and there's no feedback together. But we experiment a lot. with many solutions.
Let's experimenting with walking downstairs in a webinar.
Okay, let's try.
That's something we've never done before.
So this is our new handrail that Maik and our colleague Eva built. It's all made from recycled materials, and now gives us better accessibility, also coming up and down the stairs.
Eva, don't go too far away. We can't hear you.
So the handrail now follows the stairs all the way down. You can see maybe like that. It's got this great orange line, so it's also a bit more visible, and it's made from recycled wood, and it now means it's helped a lot with accessibility getting up these stairs.
So maybe one thing while we are here, this is our little evacuation chair we got on Finn.
What is an evacuation chair?
That helps people that can't walk in case of an emergency to go down or get help in getting out of the building.
So,
It
yeah.
only needs another person to handle that chair. But they are
But have you
extremely
ever
expensive,
used it-
so we were glad.
Have you ever used it on two drunk Norwegians into a concert or something?
Not yet, but it's quite likely, yes.
Yeah. So now we're in the smaller venue, our bar, which is the first floor. So this is also fully accessible, and this is our low threshold venue. So upstairs, you saw it's a fantastic space, but it can cost quite a lot to make things happen. Whereas here, we keep it free for artists to use, and so we also kind of open up this space for more young artists and musicians to take risks and have their first concerts. This is what's coming up this month. And then this is, when we built the bar, we also did the same thing down here and made the bar really low. So it's perfect height for, if you're using a wheelchair or you can hang at the bar. What else to say? Yeah, we can come back to.
Yeah.
I have a question to you, Maik,
Yeah.
or to both of you. Do you use local handy workers? I don't know the correct.
Yeah.
How do you work with local companies in creating this?
Yeah, we have a pretty good network of all scales, I would say, big companies and also companies that are like really our neighbor is running a building company that he is doing a rebuild of a studio at the moment, for instance. Then we have in our network of people, we have a lot of enthusiastic builders that do have a day job and are happy to come for a couple of hours or 3 hours in the evenings to do things. So
yeah, and I think we love having them here. So we have a very good network of these builders and companies, from electricians to roofers to the rehabilitation company to the construction engineers. And I think because doing this work is so interesting and transformational for us, we're always very excited to see them. And I think in many other places they visit, maybe that's not the reception that they get, whereas we're like, yo, it's time to fix the beam. So we just replaced the beam in the bar. That was totally eroded after years of being damp, and we're right next to the fjord here as well. So we've just had that replaced. So we're always, I think...
can't see the fjord though.
The builders and the handy workers are always helping us to find solutions. And
so, but that's interesting, because I've never thought about creating a network of construction workers or construction companies to be able to do something new and creative with such a venue like yours. Do you have any top 2 advice for venues or people in the culture sector who would like to enhance the networks into those kind of sectors?
I think it's really just about building up good relationships to. I mean, that's what we do anyway, right? And then I don't know. Can't really tell. I mean, it also happens that, for instance, today we have some electricians in the house that we have been working with for years, and they are also musicians. They are at the same time electricians or craftsmen, but they're also enjoying culture. There's this kind of common ground where you can meet. And a lot of people that are coming to the building, they will find their kind of idols or bands in the house that they love to listen to. This is always a good kind of ground to get a more, that's even personal level in the communication. I would say.
Let's spill the tea. Who are some of the more famous bands or producers or people working in your house? Is there anything that people would have heard or?
Yes, perhaps people watching might have heard of Sondra Lerche, or Girl in Red recorded her first album here, Enslaved, Kaiser's Orchestra,
Øyvind Skarbø.
yeah, Skarbø Skolekorps, Benedicte Mauset, who won the Nordic Music Prize a few years ago. She's a hardanger fiddle player. Jon Olav Nielsen.
Røyksopp.
Røyksopp, yes. So it's a whole, there's a few hidden gems behind these doors, and a lot of these musicians are also visiting here. Kvelertak, Kjetil Møster, yeah, Miss Tati. It's an impressive list of people here. It's it's a real like melting pot of a lot of different musicians.
Mhm.
How do you make people feel at home in an old dead meat factory?
Yeah.
We serve coffee. We serve good coffee to our building companies.
Yeah.
No, it's like I don't know. It's like just creating a nice and cozy atmosphere with like small things. No, it's not like it's not a secret recipe. It's just like being open and.
Yeah, and I think this listening is really important. Like, I think the organizers and audiences that give us feedback about what we could improve, we take it really seriously, so they can then see that next time they come, that we can just have a look in the corridor here.
I think you need to sit down now, because now I'm getting seasick.
Yeah,
Right.
of course. We should just sit back.
If I could ask you to do that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It was a nice boat ride.
But yeah, I think listening is super important, because we work with so many different organizers and groups, and a lot of people that face not being welcome in other organizations. So I think it's just about listening to what they need and what makes their experience better. And then the nice thing is that learning then is kind of replicated with other organizers and other events. So just small things, for example, putting up a poster to let people know that the event will be photographed. So if they don't feel comfortable being in someone's social media, they can let the organizer know. And that's something that came from Transgender Awareness Week, but it's now something we do at all events. So I think, it means that what we learn from people also can help other audiences and other organizers. So yeah, I think,
These days, the culture sector is very focused on funding and costs. And how expensive is it to be an inclusive culture arenas, as you aim to be? Or how do you scale? How do you make it sustainable in so many different levels? Because you are truly inclusive, and
I think there are obviously some things that have cost us a lot of money, like installing the elevator. That was a big cost. So I think there's, two things. One, with Maik, we try to, like we said, reuse as much material as possible. And we try and make Bergen Kjøtt as accessible as possible, and show that it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. For example, making the hallway to the toilets, which before was just a nice white corridor, adding coloured lines around the doors, so it's much more easy to navigate for people with visual impairment. You know, that's just some paint, and it can be any colour that you have. You don't have to invest in completely rebuilding the corridor. It's and it's also, I think, we've sort of listened to what the priorities are in terms of making the building more accessible. So we know that it would be really helpful to have tactile signage, and but that, you know, that's an investment in printing tactile signs. So before that, it's also more helpful to have someone at the door to tell people, if they have a visual impairment, where to go, what they're experiencing, to paint the door frames. So I think there's lots of things that we try to do where we try to reuse what we have and make these quite huge transformations, but using paint or using old wood that we've got.
So,
and then I think, yeah.
Sorry, we in one of the previous webinars in the series, we talked to Jo Warrant, who is the director of a UK organization called Unlimited, which supports artists with disabilities and fund projects, and are very conscious on, how the culture sector should be sustainable without, making, including everyone. And she said again and again, like, nothing about us without us there.
Exactly.
Which seems obviously very, of course. But as you said, how do you go into conversations with groups that maybe are not that represented well in the culture sector before? Do you seek them? Do you invite them in? How do you have time to do it? Because it's also a timing, we are time poor in the culture sector. It's...
we do. We build a lot of connections from, I think initially from also reaching out to people and making sure people know that Bergen Kjøtt is a space that they can use. And then gradually, when more groups see that, see themselves represented here, or see that other groups are using us, and they also get in touch, and we build these long relationships. But I think that's nothing about us without us is also how we develop things here. It's possible to read what you should do in terms of accessibility, but for us it's much more interesting to have a conversation with the people that have that as their lived experience. And we learn a lot that you cannot understand from a universal access manual, and for those people it also means a lot more than it's not only about installing an accessible toilet and then you can move on with doing real culture. This is about listening to everyone in our society and making sure they feel comfortable here. And
process again, no? The technical infrastructure is one thing, but taking everyone along in the process, that's a whole different universe, and a much more inspiring one for all parties or all people involved.
And much more sustainable. It's about thinking about sustainable communities and sustainable audiences. And if the building is more accessible, then more people are coming. And I think it's been something that's been part of our priority. So we've, and it's, taken some work, but it's also, for me, it's important that that's the work, and it's not an afterthought that we should have a few more different people represented. It's we want to from the start involve those different people.
So have you experienced sorry, Mike?
No.
Are you getting any pullback or pushback from being too radical and programming too many radical organizations, or with a change of government, we could get culture funding, or with this approach you're having, the risk factor, is it anything you're worried about, or is it just silly of me to even
No, it's
ask?
a good question. And at the start, when I first started, and when we took over this building that had been running for 10 years, it was also setting up a new organization, a new foundation to own it. So although we had a history of Bergen Kjøtt, we were also starting from the beginning. So it was also a chance to be very clear about our intentions to be fully accessible and inclusive. And at that time, it faced some pushback that maybe Bergen Kjøtt would become more known as a community centre, or we would lose some kudos for not only working with professional musicians. And now, after 5 years, having this inclusive approach is what means that we attract more audiences, more organisers, more funders, more awards. So yeah, it's something that I still hear that, you know, by being inclusive, we kind of jeopardize the real culture. But for us, like, that is culture. The wheelchair users are fantastic musicians. And when I first
Unless
started,
they're
there
musicians
was
in a wheelchair, because that's probably
exactly, yeah, and exactly. And when I started, there was, you know, someone on the board said, "But why should we, you know, invest in this accessibility when no one using a wheelchair is coming here?" It's like, of course they're not coming here because it's physically not possible. So now also with talking to politicians and funders, I think it's important to show them that thinking about inclusion and accessibility also is thinking about sustainable business. It means that we sell more tickets, that we have more people coming, that our culture reaches more people. Yeah, diversity isn't just this nice thing that we do to make people feel good. It's actually contributing to a more sustainable, profitable in some cases.
That's a good cue to show my shirt today. Let's see.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah, because
The dog is not dead; she's sleeping. But no music on the planet is the slogan for Music Declares Emergency. A UK started organization with a lot of musicians supporting it. So yeah, there's no culture on a dead planet either, is there?
Yeah, exactly. And there's no culture if there's less people to make it and experience it and contribute to it. So yeah, it's I think it's sort of, yeah.
Speaking of climate, I see that you also have opened your arena to climate activists who get to meet there. And would you like to tell me a little bit about what's your idea behind that and why you're doing it?
Yeah. Every Tuesday we host a group called Fossil Free Fritidsclub, and it started as a group that needed a space to just meet each other and share frustrations and also ideas about how to confront and tackle climate change on a local level in Bergen. And they make soup every week, so it's also a chance to come and have dinner together. And now we're in talks with them because their activity is getting too big. They started in the bar and it's now too many people coming. So we're also now talking to them about how we could find an exchange together that maybe they could help us to open the bar like one extra day a week and run that and serve soup, and then in return they get to use the big space for free. So I think an approach that Maik and I both share is like these different economies. Not everything has to be about money coming in and out. It's like, what can they offer us that means that we can then give them some space in return. And but it's fantastic. It's getting a lot of attention and
I'm so happy to hear about a popular climate event. Another webinar in this series, we talked to Faimata Conte, who is the environmental manager at Arts Council England. And they've been doing an environmental program for 12 years, facilitated by Geoless Bicycle, an UK NGO. And a lot of the Arts Council grantees have to report on environmental measures they do. And one of the questions they're being asked to report on is, do you use your venues, do you lend out your venues to local activist groups? I think it's quite a cool environmental reporting question, because activist group locally, they don't have money, they need places to gather. And I'm so glad to see that you are there lending out your space to people. Also, one thing regarding that, the climate activists base a lot of their activities on the American civil rights movement. in the 50s and in the 60s. And I just read that a very important space for the whole American civil rights movement was the churches, because they lent out their rooms for the activists to gather there and to eat soup and eat meals together. And I think maybe today venues like Bergen Kjøtt, could take a role in. It's just so. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, it's great.
Wasn't really
We get to meet new people, and it also brings new people to the venue that haven't been here before. And I think it's a really, that question it's a nice way to also think about contributing to sustainability, and not all activity related to thinking about sustainability has to be, again, like these tick boxes of how much energy you're using, or physical developments. It's like you say, also about these other economies of sharing space, of welcoming different audiences, supporting different initiatives. So we also host Clothing Swap, which is some of the climate activists are also working on Clothing Swap, but that happens here 3 or 4 times a year, where it's encouraging people to not invest in fast fashion and instead swap clothes and meet people, and become more aware that you can have a great wardrobe without investing in fast fashion.
So are there any groups you would like to include in your spaces that you haven't started working with, or is there anyone left? Maybe
Anyone left?
they're probably
right-wing politicians, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, in principle, we are open, right, for everything, and try to make things possible with or without budget. And I think,
get in touch if you're interested out there.
I know that a lot of cultural spaces on the west coast of Norway, they make some money from renting out their spaces to fossil fuel companies, maybe. Would a fossil fuel company be welcome at Bergen Kjøtt? Or is there some,
we didn't have a request yet.
No, luckily we didn't have a request.
You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
No, we didn't have any requests. And I think we do think, even though we operate on a rental model, we do think about who can use us here and who we won't work with, and we also make it very clear, sort of in everything we do, and our event information and our booking information, that these are the values that we stand for, to support sustainability and no discrimination, and definitely an anti-racist, inclusive environment. And those are the values that we expect all audiences and staff and organisers to also have here. So I think somehow also, because we're very vocal or explicit about our values, that also, I think, means that so far an oil company hasn't got in touch. Maybe they have another venue they can go to and don't have to think about these things.
But they are appropriating, the cultural left symbols and imagery and all.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, but if we would have a request from that side, we will probably enter like a discussion with everyone involved. And then...
What I see when I talk to other venues about issues like that, I think people running cultural venues don't think about people working in the bar that night, or their volunteers, or how people in other levels of the organization thinks about these issues, because the mood is changing really fast these days on who you'd like to work for and what values they have. For sure. So what's the future for Bergen Kjøtt? Maik, what are you going to build or not build, and who are you going to invite or not?
Well,
the accessibility is high up on the agenda, and then also the new fire escape is under heavy planning, and then of course when you run a venue, you always need, and especially with musicians in the house, you always need storage and places to store things. So this is also high up on the agenda. And then the increasing of the capacity also comes with other requirements, like more toilets and more, probably also a ventilation system. So yeah, there are enough things to do, and next to the everyday repair of a blocked drainage or whatever things happen.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's an everyday process, the improvements.
Yeah, it's never getting boring here.
No. And learn all the time how to find solutions and fix things, and I think that's also, it's such a big part of what we do, that's also why we shine a light on it, and the workers that do it, that this maintenance work is the transformational work that keeps the building not only running but accessible and sustainable for the future. So this like everyday maintenance, it's just it's the work.
And also trying to make us a little bit independent, like in having our little snackerbua, for instance, our little wood workshop slash storage of materials that can be reused. Now we invested in a few more tools that we got funding for. So the idea is also to have a lot of in-house solutions for a lot of things. That also helps, because if you always have to call a company, then we all know about the prices in Norway.
Speaking of prices and speaking of support, this webinar is supported by Kulturrom. I know you got some funding from Kulturrom as well, but that was for a totally different project, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've had a few. We've had quite a few different things from Kulturrom. They helped us to install our sound system and our light system, and now we also have some the green investment money to think about making our storage more accessible, like storage of sound gear. And we're now working a lot with Kulturrom because we have a program to train more sound engineers, and specifically more women, non-binary and trans people as sound engineers. And that's like another part of the sustainability work, how to sustain a more diverse sector of sound technicians, which currently are 93% male cis male in Norway. So it's a hugely gender imbalanced sector. So Kulturrom also help us to run this course and mentorship and apprenticeships, so that we can train more a bigger diversity of sound technicians.
How do you do it, like in concrete?
with the sound technicians? Yeah. So when we installed the sound system, it was another chance to think, how can we not just install the speakers and then get on with doing like real culture, or how can we not just become another concert venue with the same people on and off stage? And the question I said to Kulturrom is, how can we use this sound system to change the world and to change the huge gender imbalance that is behind the scenes in culture at the moment? So that was in 2021, and now we've been running, I think now it's more than 20 different courses as an introduction to sound engineering. So at different levels for beginners to be able to get to grips with sound engineering, So we train people that want to become sound engineers, but also teachers, youth workers, librarians who work with sound all the time, but don't know how to connect the microphone. So it's a lot of empowering more people with this knowledge. And now we've trained more than 170 people in sound engineering, and 93% of the trainees are women, non-binary, trans. So we totally flipped the statistic of the norm, and now we've definitely doubled the number of women, non-binary sound technicians working in Bergen. So it's had a very concrete impact on the sector, and I think it's also helped us to think about investing in the sound system. It's how to make the sound system more sustainable. It's it can do something much more than just replicating the same on and off stage.
That's amazing, and also grabbing onto the whole you need to see something to be something. And I had the joy of being at Bergen Kjøtt a few weeks ago.
Yes, with one of our graduates.
Yes, on a beautiful little new festival called Winter of Soul, which celebrates Black culture. And I attended a workshop which were held by Balansekunst on representation and inclusion in the culture sector. And it was just a beautiful room to be in and to be able to attend the workshop and hear people's reflections from all kind of both cultures, sectors, parts of the world. And we are talking, there was a lot of talk in the workshop about how can you become something when you don't see any others who looks like you or there.
Yeah.
Wow. So I didn't know your technician program was that big. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it was Karina who was doing the sound for you on that seminar. So she went through the course and now she's working as a sound technician. And I think that also helps to create, like we were talking before, about a more accessible, welcoming space, because definitely it's very different seeing a woman behind the sound desk, and inspires a lot more people to also think they could do that job. But we also find, sometimes, like working with Karina, she also brings a different sensitivity to working with different people on stage, or she's also in a process of learning herself. So, she's just bringing a kind of different approach, and it's very inspiring to see these sound engineer trainees now doing it, and they're all over the city now as well.
I think it's also a very, very important example to talk about and give a lot of attention to, because just the knowledge that one venue can make such a big difference, or one, you're not that many people, you don't have millions and millions and millions of money, but that we can change the culture sector person by person, person to person, is, I think we need to be more aware of it and appreciate it. So this is obviously a forum for exchanging knowledge and learn from guys like you. But how do you think the culture sector in Norway could gather all the knowledge you have at Bergen Kjøtt and spread to more people, or how do we facilitate for more learning and sharing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you're doing a fantastic job, bringing so many different people together and sharing it and documenting it afterwards as well. And we were just talking last night about the importance to maintain streaming and online access for people that also can't physically always attend events, or like now we don't have to travel, we can meet online and reach more people nationally or even internationally this way. So I think what you're doing here is really fantastic. And now we're just about to start a new project to build a network in Vestland, for exactly that reason, for sharing what we've learned about specifically accessibility, and also learn from other organizations in the region what they're doing. And a big part of that is to start with a kind of bring everything you have and want to say session for a lot of people and organizations who are working with disability and have lived experience of a disability, so they can just say what is frustrating and what puts up a barrier and what restricts them from engaging in culture. And then that will be the starting point for sharing with more organizations to hear what's needed and then think about how we can share tips of doing it. So like kind of lifting up the whole region and how we learn from each other. So I think building networks is super important, and what you're doing here is really great.
Oh, that's why I asked it. No.
Yeah.
So, but another question, related to this, and if anyone watching has any questions or comments, please add it in the comment section. But when I talked to Joe Varent from Unlimited in the UK, we talked about nothing about us without us, but also about maybe merging, and maybe we could do it at Bergen Kjøtt at one point, but take people working in the climate sector or climate activists, and people representing people with disability organizations, and people representing the culture sector, and bring those three parts together. Because now you have like climate issues or sustainability issues, and then you have the culture sector, and they're doing a bit with sustainability, but not with this disability. And maybe we should do an event at Bergen Kjøtt at one time and gather those three worlds in one.
Would be fantastic. Yeah, it would be great. Yes.
Let's
definitely.
talk more about.
Yeah.
I'd love to do it, to see intersectionality.
Exactly. So we're not kind of working in these silos, and they are really interconnected.
There's also something we were talking about yesterday, that it's quite hard in a city to find places where like different groups of society can mingle, or at least have overlaps. So it's I think Bergen Kjøtt can be a place where, talking about having a group of climate activists cooking a soup while at the same time is a event going on upstairs that attracts, like, let's say, a more conservative crowd, and then you suddenly have this kind of overlap, because they have to kind of pass each other in order to get to the venue and share the facilities and stuff. So this is also something I think that can't be underestimated.
Yeah, and for example, last Saturday we had the opening of Festival, and then they were looking around for ages at someone to cater for it, and then they asked the climate activist soup group that then made soup for the Festival. So I think these moments, where these different activist groups come together and realize that they also share a lot of potential in working together, and then you see they just from that collaboration they also cross over audiences, and people coming to Festival and interested in feminism get to meet people working for climate change, and hopefully might come and join the soup event. So I think it's something that's our hope for Bergen Kjøtt, that these groups and audiences can mix and hopefully at some point also influence maybe organizers that aren't thinking about that either.
I would like to say thank you to Eva and Maik. We've been talking for an hour. I could go on for an hour more. I'd just like to say thank you for all the work you're doing, and for showing us around at the Bergen Kjøtt, and also for the inspiration for the rest of us working in the culture sector, because I'm learning so much from the work you're doing. And I think the kind of radical approach to inclusivity is something we can all aspire to. So Thank you so much. Lastly, I'd like to ask you a question. If you were going to go out in the streets now in Bergen and demonstrate against something, the question is, what would you demonstrate against or for? And what song would you hear before you went out in the streets?
Oh my goodness. Oh,
Ooh,
wow.
what song could that be? The revolution would not be televised.
And I often
That's a
listen
good
to a
song.
lot of
And what cause, Mike, would you go in the streets for?
Hmm?
What cause?
What cause? To get, well, all the pressuring causes, really, right?
Oh, you mean the total shit show our world is in today?
I can't really address. I mean, it's one has to be try hard to not get depressed nowadays, like, and I don't know. It's
How about you, Eva? The
I
song
think I
and the
feel
cause.
at the moment that a lot of important groups and centres that support marginalised people in culture or in society are being shut down. For example, one of the centres that we work with, that we have a music festival every year with them. They work with people who are either recovering from or have drug addiction. That centre is being closed down by the city council. And an organisation that we work with, who work with build bridges between women who are new to Bergen with multicultural backgrounds to find a workplace or a living place or a society in Norway. They also had their funding totally slashed. And I think we need these spaces. And I feel it, we're talking a lot about cuts in culture, but actually we work with so many groups and organisers outside culture who are just being slashed, and those services are disappearing and jobs are disappearing. And that it feels very scary. So I think that feels like very I don't know what my placard would say, like save these spaces where people need these groups and these organizations to find their way into society. And again, it's about creating sustainable societies and workforces and providing these stepping stones for people. But that's something that I think the politicians don't see. And it's really scary that so many of these amazing services are just being lost here right now.
So let's end on a positive note. So let's keep up the discussion, the reflections, creating those spaces for everyone, and especially now with culture funding and funding in society, being threatened. So I'd like to say thank you and have a nice. Is it sunny in Bergen today, or is it?
No.
No, it's just
very grey.
It's just the inclusive and warm lighting and atmosphere you're in Bergen Kjøtt. So looking forward to
thank you so much.
Again.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Ha det bra.
Bye.